reality. As far as I can determine, according to Merriam-Webster, the first known use of the word reality is in the middle 1500s. I'm sure there must have been a word similar to it, because Plato dealt with reality 300 years BC, minimum. But anyway, it's a word that's supposed to separate that which is from that which isn't, like fantasy or imagination or daydreams, dreams. As far as I can determine, there are two realities: subjective reality and objective reality. And subjective reality requires, for its existence, beliefs, emotions, and sensations. Objective reality just stands on its own. Similar as if you were to have a balloon, and as you filled it with air, it expanded. And that's the concept of the expanding universe. But what is the universe expanding within? So you have a subjective reality, which each of us create, within the objective reality. Now, we create our subjective reality through our senses, our five senses: touch, smell, see, hear, and taste. Now, when these senses are stimulated, a signal is generated and travels back to the brain, travels down the nervous system, up the spine, and to the brain. I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but I don't have a medical degree. But anyway, so on just a general basis, that's what happens. And then within the brain, it's interpreted into something. And each of us interpret these things as we have learned. None of us do it the same way. Now, Plato had an idea of reality. He called it, or it's been called, Plato's cave. And in the analogy, he suggested that there are prisoners in this cave, chained to a wall, and behind them is a large fire, and things are traveling between the fire and the wall, creating shadows, and the prisoners look upon the shadows and see and think of it as their reality. But more in speaking, it is when our senses are stimulated and the signals reach the brain and are interpreted, we start putting together what we see. It's as if we were in a room full of windows and we look out and we see something and we start painting this picture in the room. And when we get the picture complete of what we see outside, we then project this picture outside of us. It's not outside, it's in our brains, it's in our minds. Everything that we think is in our minds. And you And everybody's subjective reality is real to the individual because they believe it. They believe they're touching something solid. They believe that what they believe is true because they've scientifically proven it. I mean, you're going to find what you're looking for. But does that make it real? Well, it sort of makes it real for the individual. But my reality is not the same as your reality. No two realities are alike. We can get close. We can all go to school and learn how to speak the English language, but none of us speak it the same. None of us speak it the same way. None of us have the same meaning for each word that we use. Now, if you are living in your subjective reality and you're creating what you see, what most of us do is we react to what we create. I mean, I see somebody coming down the street and I think they're angry, I'm going to react to them as if they're angry. And I'm going to create the situation. Or be at least 50% responsible for the situation. Because you are interacting with the objective reality. But how you see the objective reality is your own creation. And how you react to your own creation is what transpires. So we're in control of our own worlds. We've been doing this since we started, since we learned how to do it. And we are caught up in it. And some people don't care. Even if they knew that what they were seeing and what they were reacting to was their own creation, it's still satisfying. It's still stimulating. It's still enough. But for some people, it's not. Some people would love to see beyond their subjective realities. I mean, life, death, happiness, love, all these things within a subjective reality are limited. They're not real because they don't last. They don't exist. They won't exist beyond the individual. Not those particular interpretations. So they live their whole life in a dream, creating their own happiness, their own unhappiness, their own pain, their own suffering, their own confusion. Because they're reacting to themselves. I know of what I speak, for I have been guilty of the same. When you know that what you're reacting to is your own creation, you can step back from it. But you have to see it. You have to realize that you are creating your world, your existence, your reality. You have to see that first before you can get beyond it. You have to quit looking at the picture you're drawing and look at the world as it is. And if you stop reacting to it and let it be come closer to what it is. So, if there's problems and unhappiness in your world, it's what you see in it. It's what you've created. It's your way of looking at it. You could just as easily see it as something different, in a different way, depending on the circumstances and how you learned to see, to create.